Hey guys, what's going on? Force here. Got a Protoss strategy for you today. Now, in this particular matchup, the player we're going to be looking at is VT's Adaro, and the opponent here is Roxkiss Braddock. So this is a Protoss strategy, and in particular, we're going to be looking at it against a Terran player. Now, as you can see, we are zooming along quite quickly here. Nothing really specific to talk about or mention at the early stages. Something I will say is that you're going to be using those first 2 chrono boosts on probing up. Now, what I want to talk about quickly is, before we get into it, we're just going to be looking at a basic 4-gate. We're going to be looking at a very early, super aggressive 4-gate where you're actually dropping your 3 additional gateways aside from your first at 24 supply. And that's a little bit earlier. You do see a lot of 4-gates where those 3 additional ones are coming out at about 29 or 30 supply. Now, the reason we're able to do this is because this first gateway isn't actually coming out until 14. So we're not getting a 12 or 13 gate, but a 14 gate that lets you work on those probes a little bit more. And as such, you get a stronger economy, and you can afford those 3 additional gateways quite early. Now, I'm going to slow it down just for a moment as Adaro finishes up his scouting here. You can see just moving about, checking the bases, and then moving to the last one. That's pretty obvious stuff. Cybernetics Core wants to get dropped right after that gateway finishes, and I'll talk about the timings in particular in just one moment. So we're going to talk about a couple of things. First and foremost, we're going to be talking about kind of the state of the game nowadays. And what I mean in particular is that if you haven't noticed, the new 1v1 map pool is very macro friendly. And what that means is they're very large maps, there's lots of expansions, they're kind of wide open. And basically the current map pool lends itself to macro heavy games. Now, because of that, you can kind of exploit this fact by being very aggressive and having an aggressive playstyle. If you have an aggressive playstyle and you're willing to lose some games but also win some games as a result of that playstyle, then you can, again, really exploit the fact that a lot of players are going for relatively early expansions. We can see right here, if we pause just for a moment and take a look at everyone vision. Although it wasn't scouted, because the Marine's always going to shoo your probe scout out of the base before the player actually drops it, this right now is pretty standard play on the ladder from Terran players, opening up with a 1 barrack, starting out with the Marine, getting that Reaper for scouting purposes, and then following that up with a command center. The 1 racks fast expand as a Terran player, pretty popular, pretty standard. And part of the reason is, like I mentioned, because the maps are more macro friendly. Now, obviously, this is a professional level game, so it's a little bit different than kind of your average standard play. But in general, a lot of players are feeling very comfortable with a macro intensive build. So going to go right back into Adaro Vision here. Every time I say his name, I want to say Attaboy. And I'm going to take a look really quick at this build order. We're just going to talk about this momentarily. You can see those 3 gateways are laid out and they're ready to be dropped right now by this 1 probe. And this is something pretty basic, but if you don't know, queuing up multiple actions is just a matter of hitting shift. So literally all Adaro did was select the probe, hold down shift, and then hit BG, and then just click the gateways 3 in a row, and then click them back to the mineral line. But anyways, that's pretty basic stuff. I expect most of you to know that by now. Now, in terms of the build order, we're going to be looking at the following. It's going to be a 9 pylon, okay? And then following that up with a 14 gateway. Now, I know a lot of people are comfortable with a 12 and 13 gateway. Realize, though, if you push back that gateway, what that does is it lets you get the probes out earlier. And you're doing your first 2 chrono boosts on specifically probes. You can only afford to do that, otherwise you'd have a wasted chrono boost. If you dropped a 12 gate and you tried to chrono boost immediately the 2 sets of probes after that first pylon dropped, you wouldn't be able to afford it because you spent 150 resources in the gateway. So you drop the pylon and then you're just working on probes with double back-to-back chrono boost, and then you get the 14 gateway. Now from there, what's going to happen is we're going to be, once that gateway finishes, once a 14 gateway and then the 15 Assimilator. That's what's happening. And then once that gateway finishes, it's going to be 18 supply, and that's when you're getting your Cybernetics Core. And then a 24 supply, because you focus so heavily on those probes early game and delaying that gateway, you can actually afford your 3 additional gateways for the 4 gate. So again, lots of macro heavy builds nowadays, and you can really exploit that by going for super early aggressions such as a 4 gate. Now, after those first 2 additional chrono boosts, the rest of your chrono boosts are going to be saved up exclusively for your warp gate research. You're going to chrono boost that out non-stop and get it out as fast as possible. That's the idea. And we're going to be dropping that 4 gate very, very early in the game. You can see these gateways right now just about finished. We are at the 5:30 mark in game. And now it's time for that early aggression. So we're going to see Adro drop down this proxy pylon. Proxy pylon, kind of crucial if you're looking for kind of an early KO, an early knockout in this really early aggressive 4-gate push. So you want to drop at least one proxy pylon. Many times it's even suggested to drop 2. You drop one a little bit further back that's not as easy to scout for your initial push. And then once you're actually making your push to the front gate, dropping one right outside of your opponent's base to support and reinforce that push is going to be a great idea as well. So you can see Adro bringing back his probe. Now what's going to happen at this point, again, the Chrono Boost has been used exclusively on this Warp Gate research. Once that's finished, what you're going to do is you're going to save it up, and then at some point during the battle, you're going to be Chrono Boosting your Warp Gates so that they finish faster. When you Chrono Boost the Warp Gate, the cooldown time finishes that much faster, and that's basically the idea, and that's what you want to do. Now something else to really know about what's happening here before we push in, I want to show you, you can notice that Adro is still on 1 gas. Now, there's a difference between a 2-gas 4-gate and a 1-gas 4-gate. In the 1-gas 4-gate, what's happening is you're not really looking to get sentries. You might be able to eke in like 1 sentry, but with so little gas, by only having the 1 assimilator, what you're really focusing on is just zealots and stalkers, because obviously both of these units are, the most of their resource investment comes from minerals as opposed to Vespian. Obviously, the zealots exclusively minerals, and the stalkers are mostly minerals with a little bit of Vespian, that being 150 and 50 Vespian, 125 and 50 Vespian. So that's the idea. If you go for this 1 gas, 1 assimilator thing, it lets you do 2 things. It lets you finish these gateways, it lets you get these gateways faster, but it also lets you go just very zealot and stalker heavy. So we're going to pick it right back up. Obviously, always want to bring in the zealots first. That's the smartest idea. They are your meat shields. They're the ones that take the most punishment, and they're only doing damage when they're up front. You never want to have zealots in back. I'll see a lot of players put zealots just in wherever in their army, and then there'll be zealots just dancing back here doing nothing at all. You always want to make sure that all your units are engaged, all your units are within range, and doing damage as much as possible. Another basic idea, grabbing the low stalker and pulling him to the back. You can see Adro grabbing that stalker that was at low health and bringing him out back. That's obviously what you want to do. I'm going to be seeing those Chrono Boosts like I just mentioned, saving them up, Chrono Boosting, letting you warp in faster. These Zealots wouldn't come out this quickly, but it's because of that Chrono Boost that you're able to. And being able to say, after you use that Chrono Boost for the Warp Gate research, being able to save it up and use it on units is really what's going to make this effective, because it's just going to allow you to produce units much, much faster than your opponent. So this is going to be effective for 2 reasons. Obviously, in general, a 4-gate is a strong, effective early game push. It's a pretty effective early game build. But one of the biggest reasons why this is actually going to kill Braddock this early in the game is because he was playing macro focused. If we hit everyone's tab while this is going on, you can see, yes, he does have 3 racks up, but he also invested a lot of resources into that orbital command. That's 400 for the command center, 150 for the orbital command. You're going to be seeing a lot of your opponents doing that in this game. Especially nowadays where people, again, are being more macro focused. And you can really exploit that by going for this 4-gate, and especially by going for this 1-gas 4-gate. So this is just basically a run-through and a tutorial about the basic 4-gate. I expect most people to know that, but I just wanted to talk about a few things, such as the Chrono Boost, such as going for that 14-gate instead of the 12 or 13-gate, allowing yourself to get those 3 additional gateways at 24 supply, and then the 1-gas as opposed to the 2-gas. And I'm just going to run over that build order one more time very quickly. It is the 9 Pylon, 14 Gateway, 15 Assimilator, 18 Cybernetics Core, and then the 3 gateways at 24 supply. And then again, in terms of Chrono Boost, the first 2 were used on probes. After that, exclusively using them for the Warp Gate research. You can maybe toss one out for that first Stalker if you please. But again, sticking on that 1 gas, we're going to be going Zealot Stalker heavy. Make sure those Zealots are always in the front, and this could definitely be a very effective and strong tactic for you. So once again, guys, this has been Force on 4 Strategy Gaming. If you enjoy the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel and keep watching and keep owning. Excuse me, we don't see a lot of Vikings on the board. We do have those tanks, of course, but with the upgraded range, you can actually deal with that quite easily. And here we go, moving up to the tanks while they are in siege, but the DPS of those tanks out on siege is actually quite devastating. Needs to be really careful. Hellion's going to be target firing down that Immortal. Moving forward with the Law High Templar, going to be seeing some big storms very soon, I would imagine. No, just out of the range right there, and now that those tanks are sieged up, going to want to pull back, and so Pretty pushing forward to try to secure this expansion. Try to secure the middle and take out this expansion over here for White Raw.